Okay, so we're live. So apologies for being a little bit late. We are having technical difficulties. Bradley, bless him, is having trouble with his camera. And I've just messaged John to see where he's at. And yeah, hopefully he should be here soon. Just want to say hello to people in the chat. So I put technical difficulties. Gary Moore's come up with hair and makeup delay. No, it's not hair and makeup.
Well, not for
delay.
us anyway.
So, thank you very much. Yeah, well, there you are. Adam Berry, hello. Be a massive delay then. No, we're here. Travels and more with Jason. Probably getting ready. Yes, absolutely. Sort it out. So thank you very much, Gary. It's words of encouragement there. Thank you very much. Trenton, hair. Yeah. Well, as you can see, awesome. Who else we got here? Brett on Fet. Hello. Tell Brett to get the dog treats. Oh dear. Who else we got there? Travels with Jason. I need some treats. There they are. Yes, here we are. Smuggler's Canyon. What a fine looking pair, dipping in and out as I'm okay. No worries, Christian. Thank you very much for being here anyways. Okay, so unfortunately, like I say, we're still waiting for Bradley to sort out his camera, and my phone's just John hasn't messaged yet, so I don't know what's happened there. But we're going to be talking all things Star Wars action figures, and I've got a challenge. Luke, it looks like it's just going to be for you.
Just me.
And we've got the Star Wars trivia quiz.
Oh,
I can already hear Gary Moore shouting out "fix" from here, and Brett on Fet, bless him, will probably be crying into his pillow because he only scored 1. So there you are. So all good. Who else we got in the chat? There you go.
Oh, hey Tim.
Hi Tim. Thank you very much. Hope that's for being a Luke.
Vimto, Adam Vimto.
Super. Well, hopefully, Super Awesome Geek should be here. Not managed to get hold of him at the moment. Hello, sir. Miss Detty, hello. Oi. And travels with staying awake. Thanks, lads. Yeah. No worries. Okay, so we'll get on with it then. So I was doing a bit of homework earlier, and from 1978 all the way through till present day, there has been an incredible 43 card back variations, whether it's 5 POA or the more up-to-date figures up to 2020. So there's, like so I say, 43. We're not going to go through all of those, but we will start off with the Kenner Star Wars card backs, which ran from 1978 to 1980. Do you recall those back in the day?
The Kenner Star Wars figures, absolutely. I remember. I mean, the thing is, obviously in '78, I was not even on the planet yet, but sort of by. I mean, I caught the Star Wars late. I mean, I was sort of 6 years old in '85 when they were starting to go, but they hung around for ages. They seemed to hang around for a long time, and in my local Woolworths and even places like Boots. They seem to hang around forever, so I remember them. Yeah, I remember them on the pegs, and I remember my gran and granddad taking us to where we were in, but we're long ways. Taking us to local Woolworths, and we used to sift through them, and they used to get. I remember they get really upset with us because it was one of those where you looked and you found a couple of figures that you wanted, but you had to go through every one of them because you didn't want to grab one figure and then there was a Luke Bespin or a Boba Fett lurking at the back, and so you had to sift through them all, and they used to get really upset with us because we were there for ages. But we had to look at every individual figure to make sure we're happy what we were buying. But I do remember them, vividly.
So as a kid, like, did it concern you that the figures didn't look like they did on screen? Hang on a second, let's just bring Bradley in. Hello, there he is.
Hey,
I think we got it now. So let me know if my camera falls on me or something.
No. You're all good. How are you?
Doing great. How are you two doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I was just saying to Luke, we're going to be talking about Star Wars action figures. And I said there was 43 different card back variations for the 3 3/4 inch, ranging from 1978 to 2020. I'm not going to go through them all, but I was just asking Luke, did it bother you back in the day that the Star Wars figures at the time weren't screen accurate? You had like people like Greedo, Walrus Man, Hammerhead, Snaggletooth. Did that bother you in any way, guys? Or sorry, we'll come back to you, Brad, because I was actually asking you that question before you jumped on. So we'll come back to you, mate.
Yeah, no, I mean personally, I don't ever. I mean, I was still young, so I don't think this sort of. As an adult, I think I would have looked at them and thought that, but as a kid, I don't ever remember consciously thinking, well, that's not screen accurate. That doesn't look like this. That doesn't look like that. I just remember being excited to be able to pick them up, but no, I don't consciously ever remember the look of the figures because they were absolutely screen accurate bothered me in any way. I think we just because they were so quite robust, we just wanted to get them and play with them. And I remember thinking the lightsaber feature was great. I mean, again, as an adult, you look at them and you think the sort of it obviously goes up into the arm and then comes back out. You know, obviously it's quite a basic feature, but as a kid, I thought it was great. So no, it never bothered me.
No, well, fair points. Absolutely fair points. What about you, Brad?
You know, as a kid, I really didn't know any better. But growing up, I'm like, I was more concerned about what is the story behind it? Why is it like this? And then actually, last year going to this ICCC convention in Nashville, I actually sat with two of the sculptors from Kenner,
Wow.
Stephen Geddes and Nancy Flanagan. And
wow.
They were just talking about how the stuff that you would get from Lucasfilm or whatever, it would be one picture. It might be in black and white. It would be very vague. I mean, in reference to what Blue Snaggletooth, they thought it was a short thing, and it ended up really being tall. So the Greedo thing, I would have thought they could at least seen the vest, but it didn't. It don't really bother me. It would bother me more today in TVC than it does in the original Kenner line.
So would that bother you? I know you said it bother you now in TVC, but even as a kid, would that bother you that that wasn't screen accurate? Or if you're looking at it from a collector's point of view, you would obviously want it screen accurate. But I'm talking about as a kid. So as a kid today, that would still bother you, Brad, that they weren't.
It might, yeah.
Yeah.
If I was in the Star Wars the way that I am now, yeah. Oh yeah. I'd be like, this ain't that same figure. Where's the Greedo? He's got a vest on. This one's all green. So yeah.
I mean, I guess back then, like you said, Brad, they didn't have the full pictures, did they? It was all very hush back then, wasn't it? So you didn't have the, like, I don't know, what's the word? Yeah, like say the pictures and stuff like that. What about costing and tooling? I mean, the tooling would have been expensive, I guess, as well. So they had budgets to work on. Would that have been another factor? It was very basic, wasn't it, back in those days, I guess?
It was. Yeah. Go ahead, Luke.
Oh, sorry. You're okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess like you're just referring to, I think what Adam that's just put in the comments that the mask figures were virtually. I mean, they had faces, but there was absolutely no detailing on them. Yeah, sorry, D-Force. Sorry. But there was no detailing on them. I mean, they were smaller. I mean, the mask figures were around 2.75, so even less space to sort of put any detail on. But yeah, I think it's easy to forget just how old these figures are. So it's sorry, I'm getting a lot of interference. I don't know where that's coming from.
That's okay, mate.
Someone's phone's going off. But yeah, I think it's easy to forget how old these figures are. So always going to be quite basic, I guess. But again, never really bothered me.
No, but Brad.
Yeah, I mean, they probably did have a budget, but one of the things too, talking to those two, they were talking about the sculpts and everything, that it was really, when they did the sculpts, they had to be sure that when the things would pull apart, it wouldn't get stuck in the mold. So the depth and the detail to the character would fall more so on the fact of how the molds were made. That would be a factor. And I mean, we also got to go back. I know there was one figure beforehand that was the first 3.75 inch figure, but now here we are. This is the second one. and we're starting out the gate. And attention to detail isn't what it is today, right? So,
no,
and you're working
absolutely.
on a much smaller scale. So, I think it is what it is. I think we just in the evolution of it, from going plain Jane to big and husky to super detailed now, I think we've come a long way.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, back then, it wasn't just Star Wars, was it? I mean, you had Transformers. I mean, look at Megatron. I mean, he looked nothing like, his robot mode as a cartoon character to being a toy. And it was the same with Scarlet and some of the outfits that you had saw in the cartoon. They weren't like for like with the figures. I mean, looking back, I mean, like to me, I'm with you guys. That never ever bothered me. But to some people, that really does sort of like it really bothered them that it was that way and they weren't like for like. I mean, now I think where things have improved and technology's improved, I think as a collector, yes, it would bother me if it wasn't like for like. But
yeah, I mean, I think for me anyway, I think it has to be purely down to whether you're an adult or a kid. I think as a kid, I think these things mattered less and less. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't kids out there that buy these things and go, well, that looks nothing like the cartoon, like Megatron. When I was buying Megatron, I was like 5 or 6 years, whatever I was. So it might have been a fleeting thought, but at no point would it have bothered me to the point. I'd have just been like, I've got Megatron, this is cool, And again, as an adult, these things bother us because I think, obviously, certainly in this day and age, we expect more now. Everything's advanced so much. So I think now, if we get an action figure or a toy now that isn't accurate, we would question it massively. But back then, I certainly didn't.
No. So going back, so John, what do you remember of the 1978 to 1980 Star Wars card backs?
Is John here? Yeah.
Not John, Bradley. Bloody
sorry.
Sorry, my bad. Oh, dear me. Not John on the brain. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Bradley. Wow.
The card fronts, I don't. It just took me to a place that I just remember in the movies. It made me want to watch them more and more. But to me, it was actually the card backs. And I talked to you about this in our one-on-one. That my aunt, she had a card back and she would check them off for me, the ones that she had bought me, and that actually caught my attention more than anything, because I would be looking at the card back and I'd be like, that's the one I want next. Can you find that one for me? Can we find this one? Because she was my influencer on this kind of stuff. So the card back as a child had more of an impact on me than the card front. But nowadays, card fronts, of course, has a lot more impact. But it's also getting a little aggravating with the, what would you say? It's just not the real picture. It's a Photoshop something. I mean, why can't we get a still from the movie instead of something airbrushed and everything else? That sort of aggravates me.
Yeah, I think a lot of the cards back from the Kenner days, like the original Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Jedi, they were actual photos or pictures or stills from the films, weren't they?
Yeah, I don't know why they. I mean, Boba Fett was a digital image, wasn't it? I mean, I know we had the Blue Sky Boba Fett. That was a still, but I think the Star Wars card was an image. I mean, I think it's behind me there that you can see it. But yeah, I think the majority, were stills from the movies. But again, it's. I mean, I was about to say I'm lucky that I don't collect TVC. I'm not lucky. I don't collect it because it's just so vast that I don't think there's any way I could keep up with it. But obviously, a lot of vintage collection card backs now do have sort of digital renderings and things like that. I think it works with some, and I don't think it works with others. There are some that I think look really good, and it wouldn't bother me. But there are others I just think, like what Bradley says, why couldn't that be picked from a still from one of the the movies or the live action series? A lot of the time, I think there's no reason why. Well, we think there's no reason why it couldn't be. I guess there must be a reason, but yeah.
Do you think it was because it was like Star Wars at the time wasn't owned by Disney, so George Lucas had the free reign to do what he wanted to do, and he would okay certain things? He would say, no, if it's going to be that, it's going to be from the movies.
I don't know if there's a huge amount of faith in the toys when the movies. I mean, from what I gather over the years, I don't think there was a huge amount of faith in Star Wars as a toy line. So I don't know how much.
Well, there wasn't a huge amount of faith in the film itself, was there? The original Star Wars. I mean, was how that never got pulled. I don't know, but
yes, I mean, again, obviously, I have no idea how that would have worked. But I mean, if I'm again, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Alec Guinness not sign away any toy rights or anything because he didn't believe it'd be in any way successful as a toy line? I think he signed away all his sort of rights to any merchandising cut, didn't he? I don't know if I've got that
really?
right.
I don't know about that. Because I know a lot of the people they got because George Lucas, part of the deal was that he would keep the merchandise rights and stuff like that. So he obviously knew that it was I'm not saying knew, but he kept the merchandising rights, didn't he? And I thought the money that they got from merchandising went to certain people or like I
think it did. But like I say, I think Alec Guinness specifically, I think said, I'm not bothered. I'm not, take my cut. I don't believe that anything will cut. I mean, that's what I believe. But yeah,
I didn't realise that. Blimey.
I believe he's right. Yeah, because
sorry, Bradley,
have to do that. They have to sign away their likeness rights. That's why we're Victoria's Cantina's got the thing for Time for Tonica and trying to get the rights because the one sister hadn't signed, or one lady hadn't signed her rights away, but the other did, and she thinks now that she would want to. But actually, there's a clip of Carrie Fisher at George Lucas's some kind of honoree program where she goes, that my face is yours, that I've made you all sorts of money, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, but
yeah, I remember saying that. Yeah.
Same time, that man was genius by saying, I wanted the rights to the merchandising. I mean, look at the money he made just off of merchandising alone, and if he still owned it, what he would still be making. I mean, that was
absolutely
just a genius move.
Because no one was interested, were they? He went to every massive or big toy manufacturer at the time, and no one was interested. And it was only Kenner that said, "Well, we'll take a punt on this."
Yeah, we'll take a look.
And they got caught with their pants down, didn't they? I mean, look what happened to them. The movie was a massive success. They didn't have the merchandise or the figures ready for that year, did they?
No. Christmas '77. Yeah, there was nothing, was there? Hence the early bird set, and yeah. Genius in a way, though. In the end, I would never have thought of something like that.
No, definitely not. But then, so in 1980 to 1983, you had the Empire Strikes Back card backs come out. What do you guys remember of those?
You want to take that one first, Bradley?
Yeah, I will. Actually, Bosk. I remember Bosk more than anything. Was one that really stuck out. I mean, as a young kid, and you see these creatures on TV, on the screen, they're either frightening or they really enthrall you in a little way. He was probably a little frightening to me, that one. And then the other one was R2D2 sensor scope. Because at the time, C-3PO and R2D2, both on the same card back, and it gave R2 a new feature that I liked. So those are two that really stuck out in my head.
Yeah, I mean, when I sort of came across Star Wars, I mean, they were all out by then. When I was, so all the cards were on the pegs. So if I'm honest, I don't consciously remember seeing Star Wars. Now Empire Strikes Back are out. Now Return of the Jedi. I just remember seeing them all there. But for some reason, one card back that just sticks out in my mind is on an Empire card is the AT-AT driver. I always picture that, and I don't know if it's because I always remember the story about they painted the sort of chest gear and the helmet white, because the initial picture, very much like the original Snaggletooth, the blue Snaggletooth, when the picture was submitted to have the to the still, it was overexposed, so the helmet looked white. So the figures were painted with a white helmet, and a lot of the helmets, the 1.1 scale helmets, were painted white when they're actually grey. And I always remember seeing that card backs. It's a real close up. So the AT-AT driver on the Empire card always sticks out in my mind. But they were all there when I was looking at Star Wars. So they kind of all just merged into one, really. I don't remember them coming out in sections because I was too young.
But I mean, again, they got some of the card backs wrong with the figures, didn't they? Look at the Hoth Rebel Trooper.
Yeah.
That was the what do you call it? Echo Base Trooper, wasn't it? So
yeah. And I'm going into a different area now, but they got a lot of the weapons wrong, didn't they? You know, the weapons that they issued with some of the figures, like for example, Hoth Luke issued him with a rebel rifle, and he never used it. Never used it in the film, you know. And you think, why did they issue him with a blue lightsaber? You know, because he uses that to get away from the Wampa, and you think that would make more sense. But I remember thinking, as an adult, certainly that the Luke figures were very light on lightsabers. You know, there was certain figures I thought they should have had lightsabers issued, and they didn't. Just got a blaster or whatever. But yeah.
Do you think after the success of Star Wars, and with like Hasbro not Hasbro, sorry, Kenner getting it slightly wrong with some of the figures in Star Wars, they would have sort of like made more of a concerted effort to try and get more screen likeness to the figures, Bradley?
You would have thought. I mean, you look at some of the ones in Return of the Jedi are really just going to the last 17 Power of the Force figures. You got the I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot you could have done to these figures, no, but like the Imperial, the Emperor, I mean, they were just really plain Jane, wasn't they? They were just just big old blob of plastic, and there you go.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
So, but
sorry, Bradley, go on.
But yeah, hey, Mike. I think they should have tried a little better. I mean, I think they did in some of them, especially the, I ain't even going to say that. I was going to say the humanoid figures, but some of the faces were a little broad and not that great on those as well. So maybe the aliens, they did better than they did on the humanoids, maybe.
But yeah, they did. But I mean, again, I suppose with the tooling back in those days, it was fairly basic, wasn't it? So to get a correct likeness of a humanoid figure, like I say, like Han Solo, Luke, I mean, crikey, they're getting better. But I mean, it's taken till now for them to actually get a fairly decent Luke sculpt and a Han Solo sculpt for both Black Series and the Vintage Collection.
Yeah.
So, you know, I suppose you got to remember that they were, very limited to what they could do. I mean, Return of the Jedi, 1983 to 84, those figures came out on card backs. What do you remember of those? I mean, for me, I think they were probably the best lot of figures, likeness-wise, to the films than the previous two movies. Luke?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, they all merged into one, but one particular figure that I thought on the Jedi card that I remember thinking that's a cool figure. You know, you got 3 accessories, and I just remember thinking that is a cool figure, which was Jedi Luke. You know, you got him all in black, which I just thought was always a great outfit in Jedi. You got the cape, you got the lightsaber, and you got the blaster as well. So I just thought that was a real sort of value for money figure at the time, and I always liked the card back as well. So that was a standout figure for me on the Jedi card.
Yeah, absolutely. Bradley?
The Imperial Royal Guard, I think, was the one that caught my attention the most.
Yeah.
I really like that. And then when they finally released the alternative picture to Darth Vader, that one did it for me. That was the best one for me, but before it was the Imperial Royal Guard.
Absolutely. I mean, because the Return of the Jedi brought in the cloth goods, didn't it? That was the first time you saw that in the line. I mean, the capes were well, I quite like the vinyl. I mean, that is such a classic look now, isn't it? It really is. I mean, good old nostalgia buzz there. But definitely, I think it was Klaatu. He had
he had like the skirt sort of thing, didn't he?
That's it. Yeah. But then the Emperor was that was all plastic, wasn't he? He didn't have any soft goods, did he?
Yeah. I also remember thinking that there was a few figures in the Jedi line with removable helmets. I think Boosh was always a great figure. I thought that was a fantastic one. I always liked that. I mean, not a huge amount, didn't get a huge amount of love, but I always liked the Lando skiff figure as well. Again, I don't know if the removable helmet was part of that.
It was. Yeah,
but I always liked that figure. It doesn't seem to get too much love, but yeah, I always liked it.
He did look pretty decent. Bradley?
Yes, same thing with the Lando Skiff Guard. I think that was one of my favorite figures during that time. I mean, I had the Royal Guard, And like I said, the card back was the best, but when it come to the toy, I liked it, but I ended up ripping the cloth off of it. I didn't like the cloth on it. But I remember the Lando was one that I really liked the most. And if I lost the helmet, I would just go crazy looking for it because that was part of it. I gotta have him complete. So
absolutely.
That's a good call because that was my favorite.
So in 1984 to 85, you had the Kenner Power of the Force card backs, the one with the coins. Now, by this time, obviously, Return of the Jedi had been out. So, how did they get Lando so wrong with his outfit, the general?
Well, yeah, I'll let you take this one, Bradley, because I don't remember as a kid. I mean, obviously, I know them now, but I don't remember seeing them. Weirdly, I don't remember seeing Power of the Force as a kid. So,
I'm not. I'm in the same boat as you. I don't remember seeing the Power of the Force Power of the Force with the coins ever. I don't remember the coins or anything. So I don't know if that was a regional thing where more stores got it or what, or was I into something else at the time? I have no idea. So I really don't know. I know out of the last 17, the one card back that I like that I know of now is the R2D2 with the lightsaber pop out because I like the shot with him all opened up and messed up. So I like that.
But that's just not to say, but you know, the Power of the Force card backs or the Power of the Force figures came out after the after Return of the Jedi, so they would have known Lando's costume as well, his general costume. So you know, I'm just wondering what the reasoning is behind that.
Yeah, well, I mean, how long's a piece of string? I guess you could look at a few figures and sort of say, well, yeah, they knew what it was. So why do we get it wrong? I think one of the most obvious ones for me when we're looking at that is things like Luke's lightsaber from the first 12. Why was that yellow? You know, and then you can take it further because obviously they got Ben's saber the right color in the exact same line, but then we get even further on, and then we get Luke Bespin with a yellow lightsaber, you know, and then what, you know, and then you get even further on again, and you get Jedi Luke initially released with a blue lightsaber. Now, I know that can kind of be explained because right early doors, he was still meant to use a blue lightsaber, but then they changed it because it works better against the sky or the blue sky when they're on the skiff and things. But, you know, again, surely before that was released, someone surely knew that the lightsaber, the color had been changed. So I used to be very confused to why they kept getting the saber colors wrong all the time, you know. So I guess it falls into that category, you know, who was making these choices at Kenner, who was making these decisions. It always baffled me as an adult. Certainly the lightsaber thing baffles me, you know, because it could have been changed easily, I'm sure.
But then George Lucas or anybody at Lucasfilm would have had to sign that off.
You would assume so. You would assume so. But that, I mean, surely that can be done in a second. Surely, you know, George, we've got the color on this. Can we? Yeah, you know, I don't know. Again, you know, we're talking about things we don't possibly know how much goes into it, but it always baffled me.
So after the Power of the Force card backs or the Power of the Force figures came out, you had the droids 1985, and then you had Ewoks in 1985. So I really don't know too much about those lines. So I don't know if you, Luke.
I think I'd moved away by then. I mean, and if I'm going to be totally honest, droids and Ewoks didn't interest me. You know, I remember the cartoons as a kid, and they did nothing for me. And I think by then I was moving away from Star Wars into other lines. I think I was well into Mask by that point. You know, sort of post 85, I was into Mask. I think Thundercats had come along at that point as well. Centurions. So I think by then I was moving away. But Ewoks and droids just didn't interest me in any way, really.
No. Badly.
Same for me. I remember on the Saturday morning cartoons. I think I remember watching droids. Ewoks didn't capture my attention as much. And then I think it was G.I. Joe, and come 1986, I know Voltron was really big for me in 6th grade. So it was G.I. Joe and Voltron at that time. It wasn't much anything else. I mean, it might have been a little Transformers, but Transformers was not what everybody was into at the time.
So from 1985, there was a massive gap before any other Star Wars figures were released. And then in 1996, it was Kenner Power the Force 2 red card backs. So when I was younger, I got wind that they were doing more Star Wars figures. I was pretty excited to think, wow, we're going to have more Star Wars figures, because you had nothing in the shops for like 10 plus years. Then I saw them and I thought, oh God, this ain't Star Wars. This ain't Star Wars. The cards were totally different. The figures. I mean, what were your reaction? What was your opinion of those figures back in the day?
I hate them. I had zero time from. I didn't like what they'd done with the cards. I thought Luke looked like He-Man. This sort of big, sort of muscle bound. I didn't like him at all. Leia looked like a dude. They were, again, I weren't interested at all, and I don't think I bought a single one.
You didn't get any of them? Wow.
No.
Wow. No. That's incredible. Really. Bradley?
It's funny. That set, I was working at Walmart at the time, and I think Star Wars had reached a peak in my more adult life at the time. And when they came across, they were big and bulky, but, what else did we have it to compare to? So was sort of excited. But yeah, you look at Leia and it's like, oh, she looks a little brutish. And
absolutely, Adam. Yeah.
And as the line, as the line progressed, then you had the Boba Fett come out. Everybody was looking for the half circle, full circle, whatever was going on at the time. It's so much that you were actually looking for, and you just forgot about what it looked like. You were just in it for the collected and trying to get the variants. And
I don't know about that.
But then after the first few waves, they sort of leaned them up a little bit. So, I mean, yeah, they were ugly at first, but it sort of caught on a little bit. I remember you're not supposed to do it, but when you're in the receiving room and those boxes would come down the line, there would be like 3 or 4 of us that were big Star Wars fans, and we'd hurry up and open it up and say, what's in this one? What's in this one? And see what was coming out. We'd get a first look at that kind of stuff. It was a exciting time for me.
Did it bother you guys that they didn't resemble the Star Wars figures that we grew up with from like the original, like the Star Wars: The New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, from the original Kenner line, the 5 POA figures? I mean, because for me, as much as I bemoaned them and didn't like them at the time, I still collected them because they were Star Wars figures, and we hadn't had anything for such a long time. And then I kind of grew to sort of like, well, yeah, I kind of like them. They're okay. So, I mean, were you disappointed, or?
Well, by the mid-90s, so I was sort of in my mid-teens. Now, at that point, I was finishing school, going to college. So, I think other interests, shall we say, had sort of taken my attention. So, I give them no time at all. If I'm going to be completely honest, they didn't appeal to me as a younger collector. They don't appeal to me as an adult collector. I think there are, like Bradley said, as the lines went on, I think the Bosk figure. I think the Boss figure is a great figure in that line, but other than that, there's just nothing. There was nothing about them. Nothing about. I mean, they put the. I think some of them had like some sort of hologram or film stills in and things like that. There was nothing that pulled me towards them at all. I'd love to give you a better answer, Stu, but yeah, I didn't give them any time.
It's just absolutely. It's interesting to hear the views, because, like you say, we were kind of starved. We didn't have anything for such a long time, and then word got out that they were going to be doing figures, and then they eventually like sort of arrived in the shelves and stuff like that. And you just think, oh, what have they done? But people still bought them. That's the strange thing.
But in that line, I mean, I do have a couple, but in aside from the figures, I thought the vehicles were brilliant. You know, a lot of the vehicles, I believe, used the same mold as the original Kenner vehicles, but they were upgraded, as in the paint apps were better. There was better decals on them. So I've got to admit, a lot of the Power of the Force 2 vehicles I think are fantastic, but the figures just did nothing for me at all. But the vehicles I thought were great.
Well, yeah, because they were the same molds, weren't they? From the
pretty much, yeah, basically.
So why is it then that they took the same molds from the vehicles but not the figures?
Well, I guess you can always sort of mess around with the figures. You've got more room for maneuver, I guess, with the figures, with face sculpts and things like that. Whereas the vehicles, I guess, the vehicles have to be the vehicles. You can't mess around with an X-wing and make it look different because anybody would get it and go, well, that's not an X-wing. You go, I guess the vehicles, you've got to keep them the same, I guess. Whereas the figures, you've got more room for maneuver with face sculpts and outfits and things like that, I guess. But the vehicles, I thought, were brilliant in that line.
But the figures didn't fit in the vehicles. You couldn't get Chewie and Han sat next to each other in the cockpit of the Falcon. That was just absolutely ridiculous. But again, you know, people bought them. It was Star Wars. So then in 1996 as well, you had Kenner Shadows of the Empire card backs. I mean, Bradley, did you get into those at all, or?
I did. Prince Zizor and the whole story about what happened to Boba Fett and Han Solo in between Empire and Return of the Jedi was, you know, very intriguing. You wanted to learn more about it and see these figures see these story figures in real life, since you don't get to see them in a movie or cartoon. So I enjoyed it. I really did. I mean, don't get me wrong. They still had a little bit of that bulky presentation, and going back to something that Gary Moore said earlier, something about they sort of reflected the Marvel characters at the time. I want to say I heard a story, and Luke, if you know anything, you can chime in, but I think the first round they had to use some molds with some bulky things and sort of build on the molds of a previous figure line that they had, with that in mind, before they went to something a little bit more realistic. I might be wrong about that, but I've heard it somewhere. And then, you said like you can't get it in the vehicles or anything. I just remember you'd see the pictures of Luke or somebody and just be their arms stretched out, not even hanging onto the handlebars, and their feet just sticking out the side. Yeah, I mean, it was poorly thought. I mean, it's conceptualized, I guess. It's really sad for a line that helped Kenner really propel in the 80s, and then they went into it just sort of a little too fast, I think, in the 90s without really thinking it through.
Yeah. So then in 1997, I don't know why my voice went high then. I got quite excited. So I'll say that again. So then in 1997, you had the green card backs that came out. Now, again, the figures would still remain bulky, but they were Hammerhead. They gave him his real name. They gave Walrus Man his real name, Ponda Barber, and I cannot pronounce Hammerhead's name, so I'm not even going to try that. No, but they looked more screen accurate. So I guess they'd learned from back in the day, and then they've corrected that. So I think I've got to say that's a good point. Well, that's one good thing for them, I guess. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, well, again, you know, I suppose anything that's more screen accurate, we've got to go. Yeah, we're gonna be happy with that. But it was just a line from start to finish that I just had zero interest in. You know, I didn't take any notice of it in the shops. Again, I took notice of the vehicles, but the figures I didn't. I think I got when I first started collecting again seriously, sort of roughly 11 years ago, I think I got a handful of Power of the Force 2 figures in a loose job lot, and I moved them all on immediately. I tried to sort of get along with them, but I moved them along. There's nothing about them that sort of grabbed hold of me, and I thought, well, I can have a loose shelf with a few figures on. Maybe if I put a few on there, you know, they'll work well together and they'll look good. But no, I just moved them on immediately. And there was some fairly, you know, you look at some of the figures and you go, yeah, that's pretty screen accurate. That's pretty good sculpts. It looks good, but there's got to be, with anything I buy Star Wars, there has to be a nostalgic pull to it. And I have no real connection with the Power of the Force 2 line. Like I say, I was into my teens then, fairly late on. You know, I had no real affection for that line. So, I think the only reason why I had any kind of affection for the vehicles was because they were the same molds as the originals, just sort of better paint apps and decals. And I just thought they looked nice. But other than that, there was just no pull for me. No matter how good they were, there was no pull for me.
Yeah. What about you, Bradley?
So when the green line come out, you had the holographic stickers, you had the freeze frames. And the holographic stickers, you actually had variants. And I think the focus went from the character, the figure itself, to the card backs for me personally. Once again, looking for the variants. You'd look at the figure, go, oh, great. Like, I think we ended up having a Vader with a removable helmet or something, I believe. Still a bulky Vader and a cool looking head, but it was about the card backs and the variants on the foils or the freeze frames, I believe, that really captured my attention. But I also remember that was a time when I was at Walmart that the pegs were starting to back up because the red line hadn't completely sold and the green line was coming in. So you could sort of tell something wasn't going right with this line. It was not selling the way it should.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm with you guys. Those figures really didn't sort of like do too much for me. Yes, they brought in characters that we hadn't seen previously. Yes, they had fixed a few errors on accuracy from the first movies, and that's probably about it. I've got the first 12. The first 12, the original Kenner. Oh, hang on a minute. That's a good point. Yes, absolutely. He looked good, but then he's got like opened up and he had a big missile inside him. So, it kind of ruined it for me.
Yeah.
But in 1998, the Kenner Power of the Force 2 freeze frames, which we won't we'll skip over. But then in 1998, it was Hasbro that started doing the figures. So you had the Power of the Force 2 flashback cards that ran from 1998 to 1999. Then you had the Hasbro Power of the Force 2 Comtex, which ran from 1999 to 2000. And then you had the Phantom Menace line in 1990 running to 2000. What did you guys think of that line? Bradley, we'll go Bradley.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was a line that just everybody was excited. We were getting new Star Wars. We actually knew that Ian McDiarmid was reprising his role as the Emperor, as a younger Emperor. It was a lot of unknown factors, So, that line, not only did the figures for the time look really good, and they were 5 POA, but, you're also getting these little tech chips that had voice things on it. If you matched it up with a little, looked like a communicator, it would do all the lines that they would say. So it was really exciting. I think that line really brought a lot of excitement because, you're coming off the high of the special edition. And no matter what you felt about the special edition, you still come off a buzz of wanting more. And then you finally got something completely new. And, it was amazing. I thought it was great. The card backs, the figures, execution, I think it was great all the way around.
Absolutely. But Luke?
Yeah, I feel like fear of repeating myself, Stu. From the vintage to when I started again as an adult collector, it all kind of passed me by because I just had no interest in it, and not no interest in the movies. I was so pleased when obviously the prequels came out and things like that. But the toys just didn't do it for me. I quite liked the card backs with Darth Maul on. If I remember rightly, they had like a holographic logo, and it was all sort of real. When the light hit it was all really nice colors and things like that. But so I like the card back. But again, the toys, I didn't want to buy them. Since I've been an adult collector, I've kind of looked at them again and thought, you know what, some of them look really nice. But I just feel that if I started buying them, I'd move them on quick. I think I'd get them for a while and then move them on. So, I think from being a very, very young kid and buying Star Wars figures to being an adult collector sort of 11 years ago, starting to buy them again, nothing in between seemed to seem to get me.
No.
And I don't know what that is really. And I think it starts. I mean, I've always loved this. You know, I don't remember a time where I didn't love having my toys and the memories of my toys and things like that. And Star Wars has always been a mainstay in my life. But the gap between sort of being a kid and then starting to collect again as an adult, I didn't really look at them. I didn't really look at them and look to buy them. And then when I started collecting again, it was only really ever the vintage stuff that, I mean, I do get some modern lines now,
but
they never appealed to me again, you know. So I feel I'm going to repeat this every time you ask me something.
That's okay, not a problem. I mean, I'd forgotten how good those figures were. I mean, I had them. I collected them when I was younger, and unfortunately, I moved them all on, which, you know, I kind of do regret doing that now. But I mean, I thought the way, I'm with you, Brad, the execution I thought was fantastic. The paint apps, they look more realistic. The weapons, okay, I think maybe were a little bit too large, but on the whole, I'd forgotten how good they were. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is currently just doing going through some videos where he's collecting quite a bit of the Phantom Menace figures and, you know, beasts and stuff like that, and they look absolutely fantastic. Absolutely, they look great. And they really do. They really do. So I quite like them. So from the Phantom Menace in 1999 to 2000, you had Hasbro Power of the Jedi, which ran from 2000 to 2002. Then you had the Star Wars Saga, 2002 to 2004. Then we got into the Clone Wars. I'm guessing that was the micro TV series. Did any of those interest you? I won't ask you, Luke, because obviously I've got a rough idea what your answer might be. So, Bradley, we'll go straight to you.
Rethinking your guest list next time, Stu, aren't you?
You know what? I'm fixing to be like Luke on this. So this went into a dark time where I think my collecting habits sort of went dry. If it wasn't a movie prop replica or something, I wasn't into it. And I'm not going to lie, you know, the Clone Wars, the movies, yes, I watched the movies, but animated series, I had no desire to watch them. I'm like, what can they do for Star Wars? This is pathetic, you know. And I mean, it wasn't till just maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I found out how much more those cartoons added to the storyline and how it gave you more characters that you really fell in love and cared for. So, I mean, unfortunately, that was really missed on me. You know, I would maybe stop and look, but there would be some figures on Clone Wars cards or something. I'd be like, what's that? Who's that? You know, don't know who that is.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to admit again. Sorry, Stu, go on.
No, go on. So,
I was just going to say, I mean, even now, you know, I've tried to watch. Everyone tells me to watch the Clone Wars, and but any animated Star Wars at the moment, I've watched no animated series whatsoever. I've attempted Clone Wars. Wow. I think I've got like halfway through season 1, and I've just not got back to it. And everyone says to me, season 1's the hardest one to get through, but it gets better.
Yeah,
you know, it gets better as it goes. And I dare say that's true. And in my head, I think, well, I've got to watch these because it introduces characters to us that we now know and things like. And I know nothing about these people, you know, these characters. So I think I've got to watch the animated stuff to be introduced to these people and get a bit of a backstory from them. And I just can't get my head into it because when I think about Star Wars, it's the original trilogy. That's it. In my head, that's it. Now, don't get me wrong. I do enjoy watching the prequels. I do enjoy watching the sequel trilogy. But if someone says to me, Star Wars, I think of 3 films, and that's it. You know, and it's obviously the original 3. So and animated stuff again. I just cannot get enthusiastic about it. I'm sure if I managed to get through it, I would enjoy it. But I just can't. I can't get into it.
The animated series doesn't start getting good until probably season 3 because it's a lot of, you know, I don't know. I mean, and even then you do get some sort of filler episodes, which, you know, they're just there for the sake of being there. So it's just one single episode. Then you get like a story arc. But I mean, some of the vehicles from the Clone Wars, you know, I've got the AT-TE, I think it is. You've got the Republic gunship. You've got the shuttle that I got from Birmingham. the Republic shuttle, and they're absolutely fantastic. And I really wish at the time, I mean, the Clone Wars TV series, this was the micro TV series that was 2003 to 2005, but they never start coming out. Where did they come out? Blah 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 blah. I think it was 2008, 2009. Some of those figures, I mean, yeah, I think they were, they were, what do you call it? I think they were a bit thin, a bit
animated
feeble
style.
was the word. The animated styles, yeah. But I mean, they got some great figures and some great vehicles come from that line.
Yes.
But
I've just spotted a comment from Adam actually. Yeah, I did, but even then I didn't get through them all. But I did enjoy. I think that Tales of the Jedi. I think they were really quick fire, sort of bite-sized animated series. And I remember seeing was the first episode like a black and white. I'm sure it was like a black and white episode, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool, and I watched a few after that. But again, I don't think I got through them all. But I remember thinking, because they were quite quick fire and done, they're here, they're done, they're gone. I could get through those. I didn't finish it again, but I did enjoy the episodes. But I think it's more my attention span. It sometimes, if something doesn't get me immediately, I drift off. And I think again that's why I love the original 3 movies so much, because especially Empire for me is the best Star Wars film. That'll never change. But even Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, the beauty of it for me is they sit you down for 2 hours, and at no point during any of those films, I think like a lot of other films, there's no point in any of those films where I go, I'll just go make a cup of tea now, I'll just go to the toilet, I'll just go do this while this bit's on, I'll just go do this. They sit you down for 2 hours and I don't move. There's no other film that does that to me, or very few. And the prequels don't do that to me. The sequels don't do that to me. The animated stuff don't do that to me. So that's I think why I'm so, when it comes to Star Wars, that's Star Wars for me. And it's the same with the figures. And I think once anything outside that, just don't do it. It just don't do it for me. And maybe I'm a little bit close-minded. I don't know, or weak-minded. Maybe I need the Jedi mind trick, but it just doesn't do it.
So. It's I mean, so I'll ask you this then: how do you like your figures? Because I mean, between 2000 and up to now, you've had a lot of figures that are just like, I remember figures from the Attack of the Clones line, and they were pretty much like impose positions and stuff like that. That didn't really say too much. I mean, I didn't really like that. I mean, I like to be able to pose my figures, or I like just the 5p away. But because when you've got to look at the playability, and for me, the playability is, yes, you had the 5p away. They were pretty restricted with movement and stuff like that. But you could have them standing there having a conversation. But with some of the figures, they're in like an action pose, and you don't want them standing there in an action pose like that, where their arms in, and their legs are sprayed apart and stuff like that. And for me, that didn't work. How do you feel about that, Bradley?
When they posed these figures, if it was a 5 POA and they kept it in a certain position, then that was only good for one scene. I mean, you can't have an action figure in a neutral scene like they're fixing to kill somebody that they're supposed to be teaming with. So and back in the G.I. Joe days, we had all sorts of points of articulation in a figure way before, and you sort of desired that to an extent. You couldn't do some of the stuff like that you could with those type of figures. So coming to that realm with Star Wars it just opened up a whole new world.
I was never a fan of the pre-posed figures personally. I mean,
no,
I know the 5 POAs, they're most of them are very straight up and down, and like Bradley said, when you got to things like G.I. Joe, I mean, the amount of articulation for a 3.75 figure gave you so much more options. But this pre-posed kind of thing, I guess the idea was so you could have them in some sort of dynamic, action scene or whatever. But that's all they lent themselves to. Whereas at least with the 5 POAs, and even if they were very straight-legged and straight-armed, yes, you can stand them having a conversation, but I kind of thought you could still use them in action scenes, and yes, it was limited, but I still felt they were more versatile than when it came to playtime than pre-posed. Because he's like, you can have him like that, and that's it. He's got to be doing it. He's got to be shooting at this person, and they've got to be over there or whatever. If I want to just stand them and pose them, they just looked a bit odd to me. So I can see why they were doing it and what they were trying to achieve. But again, for me, no, I weren't a fan.
A question I should have asked, I forgot to ask you guys is, so when you had the original Kenner Power of the Force line figures, at that time you had the G.I. Joe figures come out with the multiple articulation. Now, I've heard people say when they bought that Power of the Force line out, they should have gone the same route as the G.I. Joe figures with the movable elbows, hips, and all that sort of stuff, and the O-rings. Do you think they should have done that? I mean, personally, I'll just give my opinion quickly. I don't think that would have worked because that wouldn't have fitted in with the rest of the toys and the figures that were created at that time.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I think even as a kid, my OCD would have kicked in there, and I think I would have just put them next to each other and said, well, they're not the same. You know, they're not the style. Yes, I think they would have been better, as in, plenty of articulation, move at the waist, move at the knees, move at the sort of hips, elbows, shoulders, etc. But I would have looked at them and put them on the shelf and said they don't look the same. So I think I would have distanced them from. I don't think I'd have seen them as part of my Star Wars collection. Weirdly, even as a young kid, I know I was very much like then what I am now, and I'm very OCD that way. Maybe a bit artistic. I wouldn't have enjoyed that if they'd have completely changed them. I wouldn't have enjoyed that. No, definitely not.
What about you, Brad?
I'm with Luke and you. You would have wanted a certain figure redone to be able to do the things that your new ones could do. So it would have drove me crazy as well. I would have the interaction between the figures wouldn't have been apples to apples. It would have been like playing with Legos and duplex blocks. They don't mix.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that I don't think there's any denying, though. Again, as a kid, one toy line that I didn't get into hugely was G.I. Joe. But I've got to admit, as an adult, I can look at it and I think probably pretty revolutionary for the time. The figures.
Absolutely,
and, I know obviously, later in life the O-rings sort of perished and they had their own issues. But I think at the time, I think G.I. Joe revolutionized 3.75. I think, what you could do with those figures and some of the figures that we got and the amount of accessories and things like that, I thought they were brilliant. Yet weirdly, I didn't get into them as a kid. I didn't have many.
So does it surprise you then with the style of the G.I. Joe figures back in 1982 that when the Power of the Force figures came out, they didn't have that type of articulation still? It was still quite basic, I want to say.
I don't know if I'd say it surprised me. I think I can only assume again that it was to try and keep them still somewhat in keeping with their predecessors. How much do we want to transform these figures? How much do we want to revamp them? I can only assume that they wanted to keep them similar, if not, if they weren't going to do them the same. But no, I don't think. I still feel to this day that the articulation of the G.I. Joe figures was very unique and it's G.I. Joe. That's who used that kind of. I think if other figures used it, I mean, I know other figures did use it in the end, but for me, again, I don't think I liked it in Star Wars because I saw it as a G.I. Joe feature personally.
Yeah.
Same for you, Brad?
Yeah, same for me because we were brought up with the Star Wars figures before G.I. Joe come out, so we were used with the 5 points of articulation and the way they fit into their ships and everything. But as you grew older, I mean, you was also on the high of Star Wars, the movies coming out one after another, and that fed that too. But after 84 and the buzz was over and you had an X-Wing or Y-Wing or whatever, and you was sort of tired of the 5 points of articulation and you had these G.I. Joes, then G.I. Joes might end up having a ship to fly. So that's how it ended up with me.
Yeah.
But I also think it made the Star Wars figures more. Sorry, Stu. I also think less articulation did make Star Wars figures more robust. I do remember as a kid thinking the G.I. Joe things were great, but they did feel fragile after a while because they became very loose in a lot of areas, and they seemed very. I always remember thinking they were quite rattly. You could pick one up and rattle it, and it'd go everywwhere once all the joints were loose. But
and when that O-ring snapped, it was like, oh god, because disastrous. I absolutely hated that.
Trying to replace them as an adult is a nightmare. Never mind. I do it as a kid.
Well, yeah, it's probably easier as a kid. You know what kids are like, and adults and stuff like that when it comes to stuff like that. So we move forward to 2020. No, we don't. 2012, and the release of Star Wars: The Vintage Collection. So, what were your thoughts on the Star Wars
Bradley?
Vintage Collection?
I think you're a big. It sounds like you're a big TVC man. So you go first, mate.
So, okay, this was still a dark period for me. I mean, actually, I was in my job where I was traveling, and I was more so about getting out and doing things wherever I was going. So, that part had actually passed me by. I don't even remember, sadly, walking into the toy store and seeing a old vintage style card with a Star Wars figure on it. I don't think I remember seeing 3.75-inch figures on a card or paying attention to them till they came out on the Black Series card. So it was, unfortunately, that was a time that I missed that. I really hate it because it costs a lot to get those figures here in the last 4 or 5 years. So I wish I'd have been paying attention, but I wasn't.
Luke?
Yeah, well, I mean, a little bit. This is going to make me sound like a real rookie, but funny story. When I first started collecting, it was around the time TVC had just been released. When I started collecting again as a serious sort of adult collector, and I remember picking up on eBay a carded Biker Scout, and it was vintage collection. But the pictures were the pictures weren't particularly good on eBay, and I thought I was buying. I mean, obviously, if I'd have known then what I know now, there's no way I'd done it. I'd have known instantly. But I bought it thinking I was buying a carded Biker Scout from the vintage Kenner line, and I don't know how I did that because I think I got it for like 20 quid or something like that. And then when it turned up, and obviously I had it in my hand and up close, I was like, that ain't the same. But yeah, so one of the very, very earliest mistakes I made as an adult collector was buying a vintage collection Biker Scout, thinking it was a vintage Kenner. But yeah, I mean, I love the vintage collection. For me, it's the flagship of modern Star Wars collecting. But
yeah,
I only have a handful because I'll be completely honest. One, I struggle for space, and two, it frightens the hell out of me. Vintage collection, it's just so vast, and it just keeps going. I don't think there's any way I'd be able to collect it with any kind of commitment. But I do love it. I think some of the card backs that we've got and some of the figures that we've got in TVC are exceptional, but it's not a line that I could commit to in any way, shape or form. But yeah, for me, I think vintage collections is the flagship for Star Wars collecting nowadays.
Absolutely. And I'm like a few guys in the chat. I kind of missed it in 2012. The only figure that I got was Darth Maul from the vintage, from the Phantom Menace. Now, I always thought, brilliant, they're bringing in the vintage collection, so it was going to be the vintage style card backs. What I personally wanted at the time was for them to redo all the figures that we had back from the Kenner days, and that's what I was thinking. Okay, this is what they're going to be aiming for. But then I started seeing figures like Darth Maul and figures from the Phantom Menace, and I thought, but they're not vintage collection. They weren't in. So I kind of it just put me off. I didn't really pay too much more attention because they're bringing out figures that weren't in the original Kenner line.
Yeah. I guess it's a bit like the retro collection now, isn't it? When they originally announced the retro collection, I assumed it would be purely vintage, characters that we got in the original Kenner line. And then, of course, we've got things from The Mandalorian. We've now got things from Obi-Wan. We've got things from Andor. I thought the retro collection would be that. So maybe same principle at least.
Yeah. I mean, do you think then Hasbro have, I want to say make a mistake, but do you feel that then they should have done that first, made sure that they got all of those figures from the original Kenner line out first, and then start filtering in different figures from different movies and stuff like that? Because at the moment, it just seems to me that we're never, ever going to get the full 96 figures in the vintage collection.
I was going to say, are we talking vintage collection? I mean, again, because I'm not sort of committed to collecting the vintage collection. It's probably a better question for Bradley, but yeah, I mean, for me, I guess it kind of seems obvious. You say the vintage collection, and it's where your mind must obviously go straight away. Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it would be a no-brainer. Sure. So I can only assume then, again, you guys will be able to tell me, you still don't have all the original figures in the vintage collection.
No, we're 30-something figures away from complete.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. Wow, yeah. I mean, it kind of seems obvious that they would commit to those first, but yeah, that's quite a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like the first 2 or 3 waves were all original trilogy figures, and then some of them were actually brand new to the line. And then it was the cards that they gave away at the conventions that I didn't realize that the whole purpose of those cards was to see what get people's feelings on what it would be to get a newer figure on that same style card back. But yeah, they've sort of messed up. I want to say that the people that ran Hasbro at the time, Daryl DePriest, I can't remember the other 2 gentlemen's names, but going through the TVC book that Blue Milk come out with, those guys were really trying really hard with variety and trying to hit it across the board instead of just one thing. And not to discredit anybody with Hasbro now, I think Emily is doing an amazing job with what she's doing. I think her hands are tied to a certain extent, but if you could give her free reign, I think we would see what we'd all want to see. But I just think they had a better mindset than what we've got right now. And I think we would have, by now, if Daryl DePriest and the other 2 gentlemen were still in that row, I believe we would have the 96. I believe they saw how important that was to the Star Wars collector.
Absolutely. But I mean, someone made a good point about Adam. Yeah. I don't think Hasbro have done all the OT figures because people would just tap out and now not bother with the new stuff.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Well, there is that. There is that. But I mean, how can you have Star Wars without 3 of your main characters and then some? I mean, we've not got a Han Solo updated. We've not got an updated Farm Boy Luke. We've not got an updated Leia. There's not an updated Obi-Wan Kenobi. And for me, we've not got a Vac Metal C-3PO, but I understand that with Vac Metal and the articulation that the vintage collection have, it will cause some rubbing of the paintwork on the joints and stuff like that. So maybe that's why they've not gone down that route. But they're 4 of the biggest characters in the franchise, and we don't have them in the vintage collection. I find that remarkable.
Yeah, it does seem bizarre. But yeah, like Adam says, I think there is some truth in that. I think I'd be thinking keep people invested in the line, and while you do that, they will pick up. Because I mean, you could argue that people will just sit tight and just pick up the 96 figures when they're released. They'll just get those, and they'll just sit tight and just cherry pick those figures. But I think inevitably, if you space them out massively, there will be figures that come along in between that people will buy that, like Adam says, if they'd have got their 96, they might have just gone, I'm done. So keep them. It's a little bit like, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but stay with me because I think it's relevant. It's a little bit like, have you ever gone to the supermarket and you know everything you want, and you walk into the supermarket and everything's moved. They've moved all, something you got on aisle 1 is now on aisle 5, and they move everything around. That apparently is so that you then have to go around. You have to go around the whole store and look for what you want. And inevitably, whilst you're looking for it, you will find other things that you'd buy. Maybe that you wouldn't have bought if you'd have gone in and been able to go straight to the things you want. Because you've now got to go all the way around and look for everything, you'll buy other things. And I think it's probably the same principle. You've got to wait for these 96 figures to come out in a big space. Inevitably, you will pick up figures in between, regardless whether you think you want them or not. And I can only assume that's the strategy.
Yeah. I get that to a point, but I kind of think people will buy what they want to buy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If people didn't want to buy these figures, they wouldn't buy them. regardless of whether they're the 96 or not.
Yeah,
do you know
I get what you're saying, Stu. But have you never bought a figure that initially you didn't want, and then 3 months later you bought it? Because I've done that so many times. Yeah, yeah. This is what I mean. I mean, the amount of figures or the things that I've got in my collection now that when they were initially released, I was like, nah. And then all of a sudden I see it on someone's channel, and then I see it again, and then, you know what? Actually, yeah, I quite like that. I'm going to buy it. So I can only assume that there's something in that. There's something in that. It depends how patient you are. If you want a figure from the original 96 and you get one released in January, and the next one don't come till April, I'm not going to sit tight for 3 months and buy nothing. I'm just going to look at other figures and go, well, I'll get that one. I'll pick that one up while I'm waiting. I'll pick that one up. And I can only assume it's something along those lines. Space them out as long as we can and get them buying as much as we can in between. I think there's probably something in that. I get what you're saying, but I think there's something in that.
Mm.
I agree.
What about you, Brad?
Yeah, I agree with Luke because, there's people like Luke that is the original trilogy is what sticks out to him. And if he was going to collect TVC and he got that and didn't really care about the prequel or the sequel trilogy, then that would be it. So you've got to pepper it in a little bit. So not only are you hitting your OT people, you're actually hitting all media types all across the board. But now here we are at a time where we've got more media than we can ever have figures, and Hasbro has really they've messed themselves up, and now here they are, they're terminating 15,000 people or something like that. They're going up on their prices, and they're sort of alienating us, the fans, wanting to collect this stuff by going up on the prices and repainting the same figure over and over and over. I know it sounds awful. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love this stuff. I'm a completionist. I want the variants and stuff. But, I'm tired. How many Troopers can we buy? How many Boba Fett's can we buy?
Lots of Boba Fett's, Bradley. Lots of Boba Fett's. Sorry to jump in. I can buy lots of Boba Fett's.
Well, there's plenty for you to become the PVC. Plenty.
So with Star Wars, then, a general assessment of figures. Do you think the Star Wars line would sort of I say disappear, but not do as well if we didn't have 3.75? Because 3.75 for me is Star Wars, regardless of how well the Black Series are doing. If it wasn't for those 3.75 figures, the 5POA back in the 70s and 80s, I don't think we would have Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a very absolute
do you know
statement.
what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's a very absolute statement to say I don't think we'd have it. I think there is a certain charm to the 3.75s because it's what we know, it's what we knew from the start. For me, there's a certain charm to 3.75. I mean, I do have some Black Series, and I think the 6-inch figures are great. I think the attention to detail with a lot of them are great. But I think there's a reason, again, why, as I sit here now, I wouldn't part with any of my vintage 3.75 figures. I probably would part with my Black Series. Sat here now, I look at what I've got, and I think if I was to move them on, would I be bothered? I don't think I would. Would I be bothered if I moved on any of my 3.75s? Absolutely. So yeah, I think if 3.75 weren't a thing for Star Wars, yeah, I think it would struggle without doubt.
Because some people seem to think that they're just focusing more on the Black Series because they've got more of a budget. They've got the better tooling that they get the figures out, like the Bad Batch. They've got a complete team of the Bad Batch. They've got figures like the what do you call them, the Inquisitors from Obi-Wan, but they haven't got all those. They haven't got all those in Vintage Collection. Why do you think that is, Bradley?
I don't know. It really doesn't make sense to me. I mean, back here I have an Echo from Hot Toys, a Bad Batch, and he's been out for 4 months. I mean, it didn't take them that long to get him out, and he is not only show specific, but he's also detailed to real life. And here we are. We've got Hasbro that can't even do that. They want to focus on making more repaints and using the same parts over and over. And I don't know. I don't get it. It don't make any sense to me how they can justify not getting this stuff out, getting the heroes out. I mean, just Han Solo, Leia, Luke, and Obi-Wan is a travesty in itself. But any of these other heroes from the other series, I mean, you're going to lose your fan base. You're going to lose your collectors if you don't hurry up and put this stuff out. Because it's like the Andor figures. We've got Andor, we've got, I can't remember the one lady's name, and now we got another Andor. Guess what? They have nobody to fight. So it's very aggravating what they're doing. There's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. They've really got to come up with something and be more aggressive with it, I believe. But with TVC, I want to say that, yes, you got a 6-inch figure and you got a 3-inch figure, and you think that 6-inch figure would take a little bit more money to do the tooling and everything. But remember, that is bigger and easier to articulate and paint, where you're putting the same mechanics from a 6-inch into a 3.75-inch figure, and it's a lot different. It's harder too. So I want to say that the tooling budget is more expensive for 3.75, but that doesn't it still doesn't justify why does Black Series get more of the budget. I think it's like equal the scale. Let's balance the scales. Let's have, if you're going to have 50 Black Series figures a year, we need to have 50 TVC figures.
I'm surprised they don't do like for like. Do you know what I mean? What they do in the Black Series, then they would have in the TVC. Because in that way, you're keeping the fans happy, aren't you? Because you can't have Black Series fans going, oh, look what we've got. And then the vintage collection going, well, they've got this, why haven't we got it? Do you know? Well, I'm not saying that fans say that. But,
yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess obviously in an ideal world, that's. I mean, we don't know the rhyme or reason why they do what they do and how they do it, what figure choices, etc. However, what I will say is, with how detailed the Black Series and the 6-inch figures are now, I think the most current, TVC, I think now for 3.75 are probably the best they've ever looked. I think some of the sculpts that are coming out of TVC now, and the detail and things like that, I think are pretty exceptional on a 3.75 figure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some of the figures we've had lately have just been absolutely tremendous. The face sculpts, the articulation.
Have they just released? I mean, I'm not up on TVC, so forgive my ignorance, you guys. Have they just released Piet in TVC?
Yes,
he's on his way.
Right, I've seen the sculpt on that and the face sculpt. That is unreal, and for 3.75, I think it's brilliant, brilliant work. But,
just one last question before I get onto the challenge, because I've got a challenge for you guys, and then the quiz. Okay. Do you think that there is too much media, or new TV shows and series that are coming out, that the likes of Hasbro are finding it difficult to keep up? Because remember, back in the day, you had Star Wars come out, they had the figures. 3 years later, you had The Empire Strikes Back, so they had the chance to get the figures out, and then you had Return of the Jedi. They always had a bit of time to get the figures out. Now it's just constant media, new TV series, this, that, and the other, gaming greats, so all these sort of like TV series and games, they feel they've got to cover them. Yeah. Do you think that's where it's going wrong?
You go, Bradley.
I want to say no, because in the marketing world, they have had more than enough time to plan for this. And Lucasfilm, I would imagine, is very forthcoming with enough information to keep them going and get figures out there and make sure it's right, and get with Lucasfilm to get it ready. I mean, they did it for Obi-Wan Kenobi. We had Obi-Wan Kenobi figures come out right in the middle toward the end of the series. So, I just think that they could really plan a lot better, budget a lot better. I mean, but now Hasbro, once again, they're becoming their own worst enemy because of some of the stuff that they're doing with Magic: The Gathering. I don't know the whole story about it, but I know a lot of people are upset what Hasbro's doing to it. Same thing with Dungeons and Dragons. And, you know, there's got to be lines that are not doing as well that they could cut back on and forward some of that budget to Star Wars so that we could get more of the tooling budget and be more aggressive with the pushing stuff out. However, you know, you don't want to push out so much that it overwhelms everybody as far as cost and what they're spending on this stuff, because I mean, it's just bad. They should have planned. This is something they could have planned a long time ago and stayed on top of it. And now here we are. We are a year and a half behind on media, and it would be easily over 100 figures if we just pushed out the main characters right now that we don't have. So we're behind, and it is it's only going to get worse from this point on.
I mean, G-Force has made a point here. Disney dictates what figures are issued. Hasbro only has so much control over the license. Well, I get that, but if they've got, you know, if they're dictating what figures are issued, then why is it that the Black Series are getting like I think the question's been answered anyway. The full wave of the Bad Batch figures, and then yet the TVC only have like 1 or 2 figures from that line. But I think someone in the chat put it's because where's Gary Moore? Gary Moore said it.
Black Series goes toward the new media, and the TV.
Yeah, that's it. Gary Moore's put Black Series. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. So, preference quickly. Brad, go first. 5 POA or the new modern vintage collection?
The new modern vintage collection.
Okay.
5 POA for me.
5 POA. Awesome. That's going to wrap the chat up with regards to the Star Wars action figure. So thanks for that. I mean, you know, we could have gone on all night talking because there's loads of different lines that we didn't discuss within the 3.75. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set you guys a challenge, and we'll go from film to film. So we'll start off with The Force Awakens. I want you both to give me one good thing that you liked about the film, and then we'll do The Last Jedi, and then we'll do The Rise of Skywalker. So, Brad, I'm going to start with you for The Force Awakens. One good thing that you enjoyed about the film. It can be anything other than the end credits.
Let's see. God, you know, I liked the movie for what it was. So let's see. Wow. I don't know. I think one of my favorite things was getting to see the Darth Vader mask, the crispy Vader mask. That sort of tied you into the Return of the Jedi and what happened at the end. So that for me was mine.
Awesome. I like that because I don't think anybody's sort of like mentioned that. So yeah, that's the first time that's been mentioned. Luke?
Yeah, mine's a very basic one. I just remember I got really excited when the first appearance of Kylo Ren, where he appears and right in the early scene, and he stops the blaster shot from Poe with the Force.
Yeah.
And as Poe walks past this blaster shot, still he sort of looks at it just hanging there. And I just remember thinking, what a great, amazing sort of entrance. That sort of sinister amplified voice that he had. And I just remember thinking, cool mask, voice, you know, just stops the blaster shot. And immediately, you know, that sort of crackling 3-prong lightsaber. I just thought I got so excited that initial entrance of Kylo Ren. So I did enjoy that a lot.
Awesome. That's again a good one. I think someone's mentioned the stopping the blaster. Whatever. But I don't think
I love that.
Yeah, awesome. Right, it's going to probably get a bit tougher.
It's going to get a lot tougher.
One good thing about The Last Jedi, Bradley.
Oh, I'm sitting here struggling. As before, what happens. I think it was the fight with Luke against Kylo Ren on I can't think of the planet's name. Just seeing there the arrogance that Luke had fighting him, you know, just like everything you just said there was absolutely wrong and everything. I enjoyed that. I really did, because that was the Luke that I guess we sort of wanted to see. And then things that happened and it just destroyed the whole thing. So
So I'm just reading Sai's comment there. Ooh, that's a tough one. Ooh, something good about the sequels. Nothing, nothing, and nothing. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that planet was called Crate.
Crate, that's it.
Yeah,
yes.
and I did like that scene, but I kind of I was a little bit disappointed that he force projected himself there.
Yes.
I think it would have been good to see him, but then Luke's getting on, and or Mark Hamill's getting on, so he wouldn't been able to deal with the bits and bobs. Right, talking to Luke.
Oh God, what we on? We're on Last Jedi, aren't we? I think. I mean, I've only watched them both once. That'll tell you what I think about them. I think one good thing about The Last Jedi, the only good thing I can remember enjoying is the fight in Snoke's throne room with Kylo Ren and Rey, and they fight the guards. That's a good scene. I enjoyed that scene. Anything before and anything after. For me.
I think you've summed that up, mate. To be honest with you,
I enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed that scene. That's about as far as I would go.
Okay, last one then. The Rise of Skywalker. Bradley, one good thing about The Rise of Skywalker.
I sort of have to. If I had to like anything, I think it was revisiting the Death Star, seeing what it was like, where the pieces fell. Yeah. And then, not that I like the whole dynamic about it, but Palpatine coming back and, just seeing how much that man, I mean, I know he's just written into this, but the thought that he has put into everything that he has orchestrated up to that point, even as far as coming up with a clone to conceive Rey to be the carrier on of the Sith, that was just shows how sinister and manipulative to live. I can't even talk.
Manipulative. Well,
I can't even get it out.
But yeah,
Palpatine was so. Those two things, but Death Star probably more so than Palpatine.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Adam's comment. Sorry.
Oh, what's he put here?
That's absolutely true, Adam. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely true.
Opening scene for it was a great card.
Yeah.
Right, Luke. One good thing about The Rise of Skywalker.
I think Return of Lando. Simple. I'd go for that. Enjoyed seeing Lando again.
Yeah.
I think that I'm trying to think what else, because I've seen these once. Each. I think I enjoyed the fight scene again with Kylo Ren and Rey on the platform where all the waves are crashing over and stuff.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that. But it was good to see Lando. Yeah, but again,
okay.
I've seen these once each. That pretty much sums it up for me, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Right. Okay, it's time for the Star Wars trivia quiz. So have you got your pens and paper ready?
Yes.
You have. Awesome stuff. Bradley, you're going to have Stretch Armstrong arms, mate, because you need to put the answers right up against the.
Down here.
You're going to write them down, then walk them up to the camera so I can see. Awesome stuff. Okay, so let's get the stopwatch. Okay, so you have 30 seconds per question.
Oh,
hang on a minute. Hello there. Thank you for joining.
CJC. Awesome. How many questions have we got, Stu?
6.
Ooh.
So Obi-Wan, only one at the moment is in the lead with 5. There's, I think, a couple on 4, the majority on 3. And
is it Brett's got 2?
Brett, he hasn't got 2. He hasn't got 2, he's got 1.
I don't like this. I don't like this. My knowledge is limited to a very, very small area of Star Wars.
Okay. So, listen, I don't come up with the questions. I just read them off a card and then just write them down. So no matter what Gary Moore says or Brett says, it's all good. All good.
Okay.
Right. So you write them down and then you put your answers up on the screen.
Okay.
So question number 1. Who informed Tarkin that the Death Star had entered the Alderaan system? Its time starts now. 30 seconds. Who informed Tarkin that the Death Star had entered the Alderaan system? I love this. This is great.
Oh God! You know, you hear a question, you think I should know this. Oh God!
10 seconds.
I can't even remember who even speaks to.
I'd know who it was, but I don't know the name. So
stop. Okay, time
there's
up.
my answer. No,
I've just took a stab.
I can't see anything, Brad.
I'm not even sure if he's in the first one now, but I don't know if you can see.
Who have you put? Who is that? I can't read that.
I've put Veers.
Veers. No.
I'm not even sure if it's just Empire is in. I can't think.
That was Admiral Motti.
oh.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I think he's the guy that Vader choked. Vader choked him in the Right. Question number 2. What is the name of Obi-Wan Kenobi's spacecraft? What is the name of Obi-Wan Kenobi's spacecraft? Off we go. 30 seconds.
This is a sequel, a prequel question, isn't it?
Yeah. So this only covers the original trilogy and the prequels.
I know nothing of the prequels, right?
And it's not Christian side. Okay. And time, gentlemen. What is your answers? Now, Brad, I really can't see what you put there, mate.
I've got nothing down. I've got nothing.
Hang on a minute. I'm gonna. Right, you've got nothing, Luke.
I've got no answer now.
Okay, Brad, is that Jedi Starfighter? It is Jedi Starfighter. So Bradley takes the lead. Okay, question number 3. What is C-3PO unable to impersonate according to his programming? What is C-3PO unable to impersonate according to his programming? And 30 seconds starts now. All I can say, Luke, is Brett on Fit is voting for you.
It's the bit where Han Solo's going proper, isn't it? He said it wouldn't be proper. Oh God, it must be that bit where it says it won't be proper. I can't think of the word.
I don't know if I spelt it right, so don't make fun of me.
I won't. And time. So what have we got?
I've actually written it down wrong. I've got royalty. You know, like he says, it wouldn't be right for me to imitate a deity or something.
Yes, it's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
I put a deity, but I don't know how to spell it. Imitate a deity.
Well, it's right. So you've both got that right. Well done. Now I can hear the tears from Brett on Fit. He's got the same amount as me. Right. Question number 4. This is a sequel question. What planet has its population living in caves and cliffs along the sides of giant sinkholes? What planet has its population living in caves and cliffs along the sides of giant sinkholes? And your time starts now.
This is a sequel.
Prequel.
Oh, prequel.
Yeah, there's no sequels.
Right.
Excuse. I just wanted to throw you off the scent there.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah, I'm guessing again. I'm going to go for that.
Okay, so you got 10 seconds. Well, you haven't anymore, but
once again, my spelling is going to be far off. I'll say it.
And
I've just guessed and realised I don't see how anyone can populate this planet. Oh my God!
Okay, go on, and let's have a look. Where's 1, 2, 3 questions up?
I've got Mustafar.
Utapau.
Oh dear. Utapau is correct.
How could anyone live on Mustafar?
Well, there you are. Okay, question number 5. You've got to get one of the next 2 right, Luke.
Why?
Otherwise you're going to be why? Because you're going to be on the same score as Brett, and you're going to be getting some serious.
I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy to be on the same score as Brett. That's all right.
See, there you go, Brett. Luke will be happy with 1. Why can't you be happy with 1? Do you know why? He had a bad day. He had a bad day.
His Star Wars card got pulled. It was not a bad day.
Right, question number 5. Who was the first character to board the Falcon in the evacuation of Hoth? Who was the first character to board the Falcon in the evacuation of Hoth? 30 seconds starts now. This is what Gary Moore thinks of it. No one should be happy with that. Period.
Yeah, I can't think it's got to be. Okay, Luke is the Everton of Star Wars questions. Cheers, Si. It's got to be.
Time up.
Right.
Okay, let's have a look at your answers.
Oh,
yeah, Luke.
I've gone Leia.
Oh, yes, it's
Chewie.
He gets the engines going, doesn't he?
He does.
I can just hear Han Solo going, "Come on, Goldenrod," sort of thing. You're going to be a permanent resident.
Yeah. Right, Brad, you get this next one right, and you will join only one at the top of the table. Luke, if you get this one wrong, you're going to be teaming up with Brett with 1 point.
I'm all right with that.
Okay, so this is a sequel question. What is the name of Padme's decoy killed in the assassination attempt at the landing pad? What is the name of... I'll say it again. What is the name of Padme's decoy killed in the assassination attempt at the landing pad? 30 seconds starts now. What is the name of Padme's decoy killed in the assassination attempt at the landing pad?
This is what I think of this question. I'm not moving. Where's Brett? Come on, Brett. Me and you, mate.
At the bottom of the table, waiting for you by the sound of it.
Me and you, Brett.
Oh. And there you go. Time up. Right.
I said Darme. I can't remember exactly.
Who have you put?
Darme.
Oh. Go on, then. Luke, what have you put?
I have a blank space.
You have a blank space. It's actually Corday.
I've never got that in my life.
Corday. So, Brad, you missed the opportunity to sit up at the table with only one Kenobi. And Luke, what can I say?
Hey, look! I like Brett. Me and Brett we can sit there, no problem. We'll have a nice chat down at the bottom.
Okay, right. So, here's the thing. What is the difference between my license and you and Brett?
You've got more than 1 point.
I've got more points than both you two put together there. So yeah, so awesome. Absolutely awesome. Guys, I just want to say thank you so much for taking part in this. It's been an absolute pleasure with you. It's been fascinating because, again, I like hearing people's different opinions and views on things and stuff like that. And although, Luke, you didn't really have too many views on some of the Star Wars figures because you didn't collect them, but it was been marvellous talking to you. And look at this. You've got your own little fan club here, look.
Yes.
Look at you.
Yes.
So,
I'm gonna message him the minute I'm off air.
But once again, thank you so much for taking part. It's been absolutely amazing. And again, I said it to you both before. Welcome on the channel anytime. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Oh, hang on a minute. What's this? I've no record. Yeah, which point did he get?
I got the C3PO question.
The C3PO question.
What he couldn't imitate or something.
No, I don't know what it is with Gary Moore. Everything's a fix, or he's listen, Gary. Anyway, thank you to the guys in the chat. Just to let you guys know what is coming up on the channel this week. So tomorrow evening, I will be on David World Toys channel from 9 till 10. We're going to be chatting, or he's going to be chatting to me. So I'll be on his channel. So look out for that. Monday, I'll be doing a video Monday. Wednesday, I probably won't be doing a video. And next Friday will be episode 29 of My Collecting Life. So so lots and lots of bits and bobs coming up on the channel within the next few weeks. Obviously, you guys all know that I have a 24-hour live stream coming up.
Yeah,
that will be on Saturday, 11th of March, starting at 3 p.m. UK time, running all the way through till Sunday, the 12th of March, 3 p.m. UK time. Hence the 24-hour in there. See what I did? So yes, that's a charity live stream. The charity is Give Kids the World Village. There's a promotional video that I put out at the beginning of the week. If you guys could just share that to Buggery, that would be great.
Absolutely.
I want to raise as much awareness as possible for an amazing charity. Again, thank you very much for the people in the chat. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us waffle on about bits and bobs of Star Wars. And thank you to my guests, Luke Reynolds and Bradley from Rocket City Sith. And again, see you guys in the next one. Take care and bye for now.
Bye. Bye.